Hi everyone, welcome to tutorial 6 of our 8-part series on Wellness Recovery Action Planning, otherwise known as WRAP. My name is Michael Norton. I'm an advanced level WRAP facilitator, and I am also one of the National Engagement and Recovery Leads with the Office of Mental Health Engagement and Recovery. Today we're going to speak about when things are breaking down. And this is a really important part of the WRAP plan, because this is the stage just before you reach the crisis phase, which we will be discussing tomorrow. And as such, things need to be very specific, and your action plans for such a time in your recovery needs to be very, very specific as well. So before we dive into it, what does the curriculum say about when things are breaking down? And how and what are kind of action plans do they recommend for us for when things are breaking down? So according to the curriculum, it states that you may begin to feel even worse, very uncomfortable, like the situation is serious and even dangerous, but you are still able to take some action in your own behalf. So this marks a clear escalation from that of the early warning signs. It marks a clear escalation because you feel worse. And even though you've done the action plan for your early warning signs to try and minimize or eliminate the early warning sign completely, you still start to feel worse and continue to feel worse. However, when you're at this part of the plan, you still have control over how you can get out of this phase. And that's really important to remember, that at this stage you still have control. And you still are able to do stuff on your own behalf to support you to get you out of that stage. As it says in the curriculum, it's a very important time, and because it's really important because it's the stage just before crisis. And at this stage, because it's so near a crisis phase, you need to take immediate, assertive action in order to prevent the crisis from actually happening. So in the curriculum, it asks you to make a list of the feelings and behaviors for you that mean that that things are worsened and are close to a crisis stage. This phase can often be very, very confusing for people, because what is an early warning sign for one person could be a sign that things are breaking down for another, and vice versa. So that's why it can be confusing. But the clear message here is, regardless of what your early warning sign is and what when things are breaking down sign is, when things are breaking down, it is a clear escalation, and it's very, very specific. So whereas in an early warning sign, you would be saying that I didn't have a good night's sleep. When things are breaking down, you're literally saying, I did not have a good night's sleep for the last 5 nights. So you're very, very specific and time orientated in regards to what that sign is. So it's the sign, but it's there for a prolonged period of time. That's an example of it. So the curriculum gives us some examples of signs or signs when things are breaking down, basically. And these examples include can't concentrate at work, losing track of what I'm doing, feeling very oversensitive and fragile, irrational thoughts to others, or irrational responses to others, rather. Feeling very needy, unable to sleep for, and you notice in brackets here, how long. It's that time period that's really important. I'm not able to sleep for the last 5 nights. Therefore, it's a clear escalation from when things are breaking down, from when you have an early warning sign where you just didn't have you had a bad night's sleep for 1 night. The opposite to that as well is sleeping all the time and avoiding eating and racing thoughts as well. I suppose some other examples include going back to substance abuse and substance misuse, being obsessed with your negative thoughts, having unusual behaviors, and disassociation, blacking out or losing time. seeing things that aren't there, risk-taking behaviors like driving too fast, thoughts of self-harm, and taking your anger out on others. And obviously, this is very, very generic, and it's very, very individual to the person. So for me, I know in everyday life, I do hear things and I do see things that are not there, and that is okay. And that's my normal. But uh, when in an early warning sign for me, they're starting to kind of really ramp up a bit. But when things are breaking down, I can barely have clarity in my own mind, because the voices are battling with my thoughts. The shadows are a little bit out there a bit more. Um, and the shadows actually come out of these big dots that I see. So normally on a wall, I see it's made up of dots, it's comprised of dots, but they're small dots. When I'm in a place when things are breaking down, those dots are widened and shadows often pop out of them. So that's just an example. Um, so now that we've looked at the kind of signs that things are breaking down, and we've identified how they need to be very, very factual, very, very specific to you, and they also need to be time orientated in some cases as well. Now that we've seen that and we know that these are the signs that things are breaking down, we must then make an action plan. And you must develop an action plan to use each day when things are breaking down. Like the signs of when things are breaking down, the plan itself must be very clear and very directive, and with many things you must do, and that you have fewer choices. So remember, this is the stage before crisis. So you have to be very, very specific of what you need to do. These are things you must do, and there are very little room for maneuver. They're the things you have to do to prevent a crisis from happening. If we look at some examples from the curriculum, one states, call my doctor or care provider, ask for and follow their advice, arrange for at least 3 days off from work and any other responsibilities, talk to a supporter, arrange for someone to stay with me. Take actions so I can't hurt myself if things get worse. Do everything on my daily maintenance list. And that's really important here as well. Your daily maintenance plan and your wellness toolbox still are relevant in this section. You can still use them to support you to get out of when things are breaking down. So that's really important that you use those two sections of the plan, even at this stage. Do 2 peer counseling sessions, 3 deep breathing relaxation exercises, and 2 focusing exercises. And yet again, this is very individualized to the person. So deep breathing exercises mightn't work for you, but it works for me. So I do that. Write in my journal for half an hour. Some people find journaling really important as well, and get a half an hour of exercise. And once again, that's very individualized to the person as well. These are very, very generic action plans that you can do for when things are breaking down. But remember that the most important thing is when you're at this stage, you have to be very, very specific in what you need to do. It's what you need to do is the important bit here. And that there is very little room for maneuver, okay? Because if this is not done right, you're going to end up in crisis, if that makes sense. So that's really how when things are breaking down, action plan really works. For me, I know now that when things are breaking down, I have the voices nearly at a stage where they're uncontrollable. I have the shadows popping around everywhere, and I don't have the rational thinking in me to realize that these are just things that are just going to be around the place and they're not going to cause me any harm. I actually feel like they are going to cause me harm. In which case, then I need to set up a couple of actions, and they have to be very, very specific. So for me, it would be straight away call my community mental health nurse and arrange an appointment to get my medication reviewed. For me, it would also be talk to my mum straight away. My mom is one of my supporters, as you would hear in the key concepts tutorial, and you'll also hear in tomorrow's tutorial as well how supporters are really important. So I also use the things in my wellness toolbox to support me, and it is listening to music, but it's not generic, just saying listening to music. It's very, very specific. I listen to a specific type of music: poppy, dancey, upbeat, lively, happy music. That's the kind of things you need. That's how specific you need to be in this section of the plan. So that's really what we've done today. So we have looked at when things are breaking down. We've highlighted how they are a clear escalation from early warning signs. We've also highlighted that this is the last stage before crisis. But even though this is the last stage before crisis, we still have control, and we can still do things to prevent a crisis from happening. However, these things need to be very, very specific. They are things that you need to do, and these are things that have very little room for maneuver. They have to be done. So that's the real take-home message for this tutorial here today, is that in this section of the plan, you need to do it. It needs to be very specific, and there's very little room for error. It's the very same with recognizing the signs of when things are breaking down. They need to be very specific. They need to be time orientated in some cases. And that's the most important thing to realize. Once you get that kind of grasp in you, it's very easy to make up the plan. So that's it for tutorial 6 of our 8-part series. Tomorrow we are going to look at crisis planning and its 9 key parts. And the reason why we look at crisis planning is this is the next stage of the RAP plan after when things are breaking down. And normally within crisis planning, it is a stage where you've got to a phase in your recovery or where you have lost control, and therefore you need to give control back over to others for the time being until you are in a place where you can start taking that control back. But we'll explain that in more detail in session 7, which is tomorrow's session. So in between now and then, I'd like you to think about what are the signs for me that things are starting to break down and things are starting to get really, really bad. And what are the things I can do to help myself when things are getting really bad? Because at this phase, you can still help yourself. That is the most important take-home message after the fact that it needs to be very, very specific. So once again, I'd like to thank you for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow for crisis planning. Thank you.